So I'm going to now pass it over to Ginny Trainer, Associate Curator at the museum and one of the curators for the Paper Routes Women to Watch 2020 exhibition. Hi, Ginny.
Hello. It's really a pleasure to be with everyone today. I am in the museum, which feels very good. Not a lot of staff here still, but I have been coming in to install the exhibition and it looks amazing. I do want to note that we are planning an online exhibition version as well for those people who are unable to come to see it in person. It is up through January 15th. It's opening on October 8th and it's up through January, 19th, I think, Martin Luther King Day. So who knows what the next few months will bring. Maybe, maybe more people will have the chance to see it, hopefully. I want to introduce Georgia, but before I do that, I want to extend our sincere thanks to our French committee known as Les Amis du Nîmois, under the leadership of Danielle Grahl, as well as Judith de Montgolfier, and their consulting curator, Constance Rubini, who is the director of the Musée des Arts Décoratifs et du Design de Bordeaux, for bringing us Georgia Russell's work to our attention, as well as the other wonderful recommended artists. Those of you who have watched these talks before have heard me say that this is one of my favorite projects to work on at the museum. It's so collaborative. It's this really interesting model whereby we at the museum are relying on our outreach committees and their consulting curators to really bring artists to our attention that, we might not otherwise have had the opportunity to see their work because we can't be in all these far-flung places all the time, especially now. So it's really a wonderful project and a wonderful collaboration, and I'm really, I feel lucky to be part of it. So today is, I believe, our last visit with the Women to Watch artist from Paper Roots, Georgia Russell. And Georgia is representing the French committee in this exhibition, but she's actually from Scotland. So we'll have to hear a little bit more about what brought her to France and how long she's been living in France. So Georgia earned a BA in Fine Arts from the United Kingdom's University of Aberdeen in 1997 with the distinction of first class honor. She also received an MA with a focus on printmaking from London's Royal College of Art in 2000. Her work has been featured in both solo and group shows, including The First Cut at the Manchester Art Gallery in 2012, Slash, Paper Under the Knife at the Museum of Arts and Design in New York in 2009, and The Book Borrowers, Contemporary Artists Transforming the Book at the Bellevue Arts Museum in Washington State, also in 2009. And her work can be found in really impressive collections, both public and private, including London's Victoria and Albert Museum, as well as the Centre Pompidou in Paris. And she is represented by Galerie Karsten Greve and has had numerous solo shows with them as well. I don't want to talk too much about her process because that's why she's here, but I will say that it is an intriguing one. It looks like a very painstaking process that she uses for her works. So I'm really thrilled to hear her speak about it in person and to get to know more about kind of the routes that you took to come to where you are today in your artistic practice. So I'll turn it over to you.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I would also like to say thank you to all of you, all you guys and the French committee for giving me this immense opportunity. It's true that I am Scottish, born in Scotland, and came to France in 2020 thanks to a residency that I was given by the Royal College of Art. And I've been here for the last 20 years now, nearly, and I feel that with this, being representing France in your museum is such an amazing step for me and for also globally. It shows that other countries can teach you things, and you can learn from different cultures and through speaking different languages, and it's only a positive thing and only a very inspirational thing to travel and to learn from other places. So in a way, I'm really happy to be representing France in an exhibition in the States. My whole creative output is, in a way, thanks to France. My first residency in the Cité des Arts in 2000, where I found the books. So yeah, I mean, I've prepared some images and things, and also, yeah, I just wanted to say how happy I am to be in the show, and it's such a shame that we can't make it, and I can't come to really discover your museum more, which I have been, you know, I've known about, but never dreamt that I could actually exhibit there. So yeah, I'd love to come and discover all your gems in there, hopefully one day. So I'll be there one day. Yep. So will I start with the presentation or the studio visit? Presentation? Maybe you're dying to see the studio, no?
Yeah, no, whichever you prefer, whichever is easier for you.
Well, I think I'll maybe show you a little bit quickly of the studio, because I know that probably people are dying to see it. I actually have, I'm lucky enough to have two studios. This studio, as you can see, was part of a factory. It used to be a mother of pearl factory. It's about 1 hour outside of Paris. My partner and I bought it about 8 years ago. It was in a complete wreck, and little by little we've been renovating it and saving it from dilapidation, really. We are lucky that we moved out of Paris, which has become exceptionally expensive to have any kind of decent space. So this space was very cheap, and we've, yeah, luckily had lots of space. So now this is going to become my space for making my cleaner work, and the new space, which you can see a little bit of on my Instagram account, is more, it's kind of bigger for more the brute. I need to be doing more messy stuff now and really developing my practice. But this is where it all kind of, the base is. So I basically have been working recently on big paintings, moving away from paper. Paper helped me develop up, here's a paper piece. It's a kind of very abstract twisting tree, which I finished in the confinement because we were just thinking of how much you're wanting to be outside. It's cut paper, and I kind of, I make holes in the plexiglass, you can see that, and drill holes, and then on these fine lines I kind of suspend and sculpt the inner piece, which you'll see, you have a piece like that in the show. It's quite similar. This is cut canvas, 2 layers. There we go. I'll maybe come back to them later. I'm giving you a quick tour before giving you the presentation. Here is some of my working tables. I've just finished a series of cut photo pieces. This was a photo of a field of daffodils, and in French, daffodil is narcisse, which is a fantastic, again, it's thanks to this double nationality as well that I can make connections between language and meanings through things. So a field of narcisse, you know, is like a field of ego, or you're looking at yourself, but it's also springtime. So it's hopeful, but at the same time, it's fading. So it's a really interesting look upon that. It's very abstract now. So here we have another view of the studio with bigger pieces, bigger paintings, more. The trouble is we've got lots of reflections. Here's another paper piece of a forest where I take my scalpel and I cut tiny, tiny incisions all over the surface of the piece. How are we? Again, there. So I'm disturbing the surface of an image bringing it maybe into the present, into being something that's more touched. We can't see that one so well. I'll try these ones. These are photo pieces, 2 of landscapes that I have printed twice and layered one upon the other and cut tiny, 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 tiny holes all over. And then, so it's kind of taking something apart and putting it back together again. So you're breaking it up, but then kind of losing it completely and trying to gain it back again. So kind of, here's a big painting. I'll come back to that later. This is cut canvas 2 with loads of colors. So I'm always experimenting, always doing new stuff, whether it works or not. You know, I have to be moving. This is a 2-layered canvas there. So that was a quick tour. I'll maybe come back to them after, once you've seen the explanation of the beginnings of my work till now, because I think it might make more sense. So I'm going to share my screen like this. Hopefully this will work. Okay. Can you hear me? Yep. And there we go. Okay, that seems to be good. So I'm taking you back right to my first years in Paris, in France, 2000, when I was 23 or something, 24, very young and impressionable. I was amazed. I didn't speak any French. I was kind of, it was a dream to go to France to learn about all the culture there. So the first thing I did was walk around Paris. It's a city that you can walk in, you know, you can walk everywhere in Paris. You don't really, it's what's so amazing about it. So along the river, they have bouquinistes, so stalls where they sell second-hand books. So there I found Proust and Zola and all the Colette, all the authors that, of course, symbolize France and French culture, as well as contemporary ones. But at the time, it was the older ones that were attracting me because they'd been used so much and ingrained so much in the French culture. So I was wanting to kind of learn about them and read them, because although I have worked a lot with books, I'm not a big reader. So it's kind of like people who love art and they want to work with art, or they love music and they want to work with music. I love literature, but I can't seem to ever read as fast or read enough as I want, which is probably the case for a lot of us. So yeah, so these books were outside. There's a river flowing beside them. There were all these, for me, heads, thinkers and brains all beside each other. So I have to do something with them. So this was the very first one that I managed to produce. I started making collage with the paper with a scalpel and just making simple collages. But as I was using the books, sketching in them at cafes, you know, drawing on top of the words, I wasn't really finding anything that original. There were nice things, but they weren't, you know, they weren't really talking about emotion or anything. So when I was cutting into the actual book to get the collages, I thought, then that's more interesting, because you're actually going into the brain and into someone's brain. You know, you're making this book physical, you're making it touchable, you're making thoughts, you know, I'm sculpting thought in a way. So I kept going and I kept the books kind of intact. Nothing's really stuck on in these pieces. It all just comes from the book. So that was the very first one. At the time, my grandfather back in Scotland had just had a stroke, and I think he'd lost his use of language. He'd been mixing up words, and you know, it was just showing me how fragile the brain is, and memories and confusion as well. So I think the two things really fused at that moment and made these strange kind of these heads that I started making out of the books in the French language. So these ones were, and then this is a very old piece. Nobody's, I don't think, seen this ever, but I found it thanks to you guys in an old catalogue. I went back to look at my first pieces. And so I was taking things out and then weaving them back in, erasing the text that was on the page and putting the words back in and making my own sense of the pages. This was, you know, more recent. I haven't really done the presentation isn't so chronological, because what I like to see is that sometimes I jump forward and back in my work. I can leave something for a while and then come back to it and develop it, depending on how I need it or what I'm thinking about. So this one is now in 2011, and it's called The Unknown, L'Inconnu. And this one has no title, you know, it's not about the title of the actual book, it's about the book as the material, and the unknown in knowledge, and there's so much we don't know yet, and how sometimes we're scared of the unknown without needing to be, or there's so many things in there anyway to discuss. But it was a beautiful piece, and this time I'd painted each page with black ink to go over the text as if it's going to be read differently a second time, or not read. You know, it's become very relevant recently with monuments and questioning monuments and how you read history, and how you should see history, if maybe history should be rewritten sometimes or changed. So I think soon I'm going to be really coming back to the books, because I haven't been doing them for, I don't know, 5 years or so really. This is a bilingual dictionary. It's a German and English one. I did a small series of them where I take two different dictionaries and fuse them together from different cultures and languages. This one is called the protectrice, the kind of protector. It's more like something that you would, like a shamanistic, more totemistic thing that I made for another show. The books kept developing and I started mixing books together. This one is called New Forms of Belief. So there's something new coming out of something else, with something greener, something that's past, and there's a new idea coming out. How books pass knowledge. This is a piece that's in your show just now, and it's called Attachment, and ideas of being attached to old information, or being and maybe having to modify it, or letting go of information that is no longer irrelevant. It's also quite corporal, this one. It's kind of bodily colours mixing together, so it can be about attachment through language, through mothers and daughters. I think I'd made this after having kids. Yeah, fight back and forth. It's kind of like a fighting pair of birds as well. So, you know, there's also lots of contradictions in my thoughts and ideas in my head often. This is one of my kind of biggest works on books, which is a whole family or clan, I call them, of Bibles from Scotland. Bibles, yeah, what I probably should mention is that lots of my material, especially at the beginning, was found from used or thrown away objects. And I think you can tell a lot about society by the things we throw out, things that we think are irrelevant, and things are moving. So often when I would go home to my parents, I would, you know, have time to go through junk stores, and I couldn't believe these piles of Bibles that were always being, you know, family Bibles. And in the Protestant Bibles, most of them are Protestant from the part of Scotland I was from, they would pass these Bibles down through generations, noting births and deaths. And there's such tombs of history that it seemed kind of weird that they were just thrown away. So I thought, I'll make sculptures out of them. I'll make them into important clans. And there's also this wrestle, I mean, they look a bit fraught, you know, this wrestling that we have with religion or belief. They are called forms of belief, because although I've maybe disembodied their actual religion or purpose, they're still standing for something. They're still giving us strength, like African totems, or a tribe, or something ritual, which we still need. Well, I personally think, if it's religious or not, it can be anything. So yeah, these were kind of taking on very, you know, look like people, because if they could come and walk across the room. That was the forms of belief. That's a kind of close-up of one. That's giving you the idea of scale. That's when I just finished them all. I was quite happy to have them done. So it's quite a lot of intense work. Okay, so now I'm jumping a little bit to my landscapes and use of photography, which I do a lot of as well, and I come back and forth to. Again, landscapes and changing landscapes are changing territories. The idea of these little tiny holes that I'm making coming across and eating up or taking away the land. There's again lots of different subjects you can approach with these, whether they're environmental or territorial. The questioning, even though they're old images, because I'm attacking them now, they are asking us questions of what they mean now in society, hopefully. This is a page from my catalogue showing different ways that I've been working the landscapes. The left was a completely more abstract version. I've taken away all the elements of detail in the landscapes and just making something which I kind of call them flags of landscapes. They don't have any identity anymore, but they still come from a place. On the right is a more kind of deep forest, like maybe talking about your unconscious mind. These became more and more abstract. These are quite large pieces, almost 2 meters high. Again, these are paper still. 2 layers of one. I printed photos huge onto Japanese paper, which is fine but very strong, and then cut them into these very, very spaghetti-like surfaces that I sculpt into boxes. So again, these are my very movement, you know, they look as if they could be moving all the time, especially with the light, especially with the reflections of the plexiglass, which I really enjoy sometimes because they, throughout the day, they'll reflect differently and you have to search for the image. This is your piece, which is called Red Tide. It's looking just at natural phenomenons in nature as well, and looking a lot at landscape. I think my Scottishness in me is very linked to landscape and changing weather, changing light. In Scotland, it can be really sunny in the morning and you can have snow and rain, and it'll be sunny again in the afternoon. So everything for me is it seems to change all the time and very quickly. So this is called Red Tide. It's a natural phenomenon when after a storm, sometimes algae will be raised up and you get these bright red sea changes, which are beautiful, but actually I think can be quite toxic. This was a big piece I did thanks to this space that we have in Holland, in an exhibition in Holland. And it's just painted canvas. So it's taking the abstract paper pieces a bit further and seeing if I can make something that's bigger than me, like nature is. It's all bigger than all of us and an all-encompassing feeling, but still something that was bright and uplifting. So I can have very dark pieces, but I can also have very uplifting pieces. I think it all goes with my mood swings of the moment, really. So going from talking about mood swings, we go from very, very large to small and intimate. I also use simple pages of the books and treat them so delicately and specially that I make these very simple pieces, but which talk about, maybe our natural environment, the fragility of our environment. This one's just simply the color of the sky, the couleur du ciel. And that's so simple, but that's enough. I think it's so strong as well. I've put this one in because it's la respiration, breathing, which we're all kind of conscious about, and how intense and important that is. This one is called, what's it called? It's got quite a good title and I think I noted it down. I've just forgotten it. I'll have to tell you later. I might need to answer you later. No, I didn't write it down. Okay, I put it in because of its title and I've forgotten it because I'm under a little bit of pressure. But these are very simple pieces too. that for me, just these simple cuts seem to be enough sometimes. Nothing too figurative. I don't want to be cutting out the shape of a heart or the shape of a leaf exactly. I like the forms to be very in between things, between, is it feathers, is it cuts, is it growing, is it flat? So just a tiny bit of light getting in. They're very, these are from prayer books as well, because the meaning a bit, but also because the paper is so gorgeously thin, and you know, the feeling of those tiny little prayer books and Bibles, that the paper is amazing. Also talking maybe about rituals and the need of reading, of sharing, being reminded of knowledge sometimes. This is your piece. So from working in the pages, you know, these simple cuts, some of the work gets really abstract, and it becomes more about the forms as well, and the layering, and just the beauty of crossing over and layering things. I'm kind of obsessed with layers in nature, layers of light, and just how that really animates something that's flat as soon as you put layers together. And layers of meaning in books, I suppose. So this one led on to this one a few years later. Maybe 2 or 3 years have gone by between that and this, but I come back maybe to the same color. But this is a very large piece of 2 meters 50 by 2 meters, and it's done in canvas, but they're very similar, and I've come back to the same technique. This kind of canvas is because I kind of wanted to do bigger pieces, and that the painting was becoming more and more important. The abstract nature of the paint, early marks, was becoming more interesting for me too, and how, if I was doing something that's quite abstract expressionist, how I would come on top of that gesture in a very contradictory manner and just take it away again. So it's almost as if I was making myself non-existent through this process. You know, we're all going to go one day anyway, and because I've done one thing, it doesn't really make it important. I maybe have to do something else on top, and there's a whole trace of all that. This is a 3-layer piece called Undercurrent. Yeah, so I'm doing a new series of 3-layer pieces at the moment. That's why I've kind of included this. Again, it's very difficult to imagine what these pieces are like from photos, because as you move around them, they kind of vibrate, not in a Soto or Cruz Diez kind of way. They're very organic, and although there is a kinetic element when you walk past some of them, it's very subtle, and it's more like walking past a tree or a twig in nature and seeing that overlapping layering effect. The work sometimes is very, very simple or very, very complex. I think there's always these huge contradictions sometimes in my work, which I believe that life is all about anyway. So we have to have the calm, and we have to have the very busy and abundant as well. This one is very simply painted pink canvas over 2 layers, which talks about, yeah, fragility and maybe heartbeats, and yeah, time passing and time coming out and falling off. This is a studio view of this space before a show, just kind of finishing off some pieces. It shows the before canvas and cutting afterwards, and these pieces become immersive, and you can walk through them again, just like walking into a painting, which is always my dream of a little girl. I think I always wondered why paintings had to be so flat, why we couldn't go into them and live in them. Or I used to also, the first artist I probably looked at or was really captivated by was Van Gogh. And I won an art prize when I was 13 or something. I got a Van Gogh book. And I used to wonder what color he put on first and last. And I wanted to know what was underneath what he did and how quickly he did it. And these paintings that I do of layering is we can actually see a little bit what was behind, or you know, what was coming first, and how the second layer changed that, and all these layers and how they change things. That shows you how I work. There's a big board. You can see my board here. I lean against that metal big board there, and I have a pulley system where I put magnets onto my canvas. I'll show you. Up here, maybe you can't see, but anyway, the canvas is attached, there we go, to the pulley system, which goes up and down, which means I don't need a ladder. I can put the canvas way down low, because the gesture of the cutting is quite physical and very big sometimes. I don't want to be balancing on top of a ladder whilst I'm doing a gestural mark, you know, so that's that. And there's the top right of that image, there's a kind of bigger fold, and this is kind of what I'm beginning to work on now. These canvases are becoming more like escape holes, something like that you'll see soon. And there's an image on my Instagram of a very big piece I've just finished, which is not calm and not restful in any way, but I think it shows you maybe how I've been feeling recently about society, about the world. You have to see that. So I didn't put an image of it here, but I didn't want to spoil the surprise too much either. Studio shot again, and I've put on one of my very first quotes from 2000 that I used, and I've put on the very last one next. So it's just the thing that people always ask me, why do I have to take things apart? Why do I have to, you know, do that to a book or take apart a photo? Even I ask it for myself, because sometimes I can be working with an image that is, or a painting that I've done, and I think, well, it's actually beautiful like that. Why do I have to then go in and attack it or take it apart? But from Erich Fromm in The Art of Loving, he says a child takes something apart, breaks it up in order to know it, to force its secret. The cruelty itself is motivated by something deeper, the wish to know the secret of things and life. And then I just was very lucky. I got Nicholas Fox Webster. I don't know if you know him, if you've worked with him. He's the Albers expert. He knew them. He runs the Albers Foundation, and he does brilliant things in Africa for his charities there. He kind of saw a slight similarity. I was very flattered by the Albers, by Annie Albers, slightly in my work. And so he came and did a text for my last catalogue, which I was in awe about. He's an excellent character. So we both shared our appreciation for Speak Memory by Nabokov, and he chose the first line of that book, which is, "The cradle rocks above an abyss, and common sense tells us that our existence is but a brief crack of light between two eternities of darkness." So this motif that is just repeated everywhere in my work is becoming just this one little opening, repeated and repeated and repeated over and over again. And you can tell me what that means, because it's something that's deep inside me. So there we go. I think that was it. Oh yeah, the last piece was the piece that I just developed very recently too, and this is called A Way Out. And I'm doing, these openings rather more in a big way, in 3 layers, pieces coming out. So there's just no end, and there's enough hours in the day for developing what I've started. And I didn't think that back in 2000, when I picked up those books, that the journey would take me so far, and it just seems unending. It's brilliant. It's just fascinating. And I'm very lucky to have guys like you around who support me through it and make it possible for me to keep going, really. So thank you.
I love that you ended with this piece called A Way Out. I think we're all looking for a way out.
It's so fun, because it's almost unconscious, you know, making these pieces. You just
Yeah. No, that's brilliant.
It's like you want to make a hole for breathing, you know, you want to get out. Exactly.
Yeah. I for one would like to get out of 2020. I've had enough of it.
I think everyone's waiting for that.
Oh, someone's actually asking about this piece, if it's hand painted, this work.
Yes. gouache and acrylic on canvas. And yeah, that's something I didn't mention is the double-sidedness of the surfaces is very interesting to me too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what goes on the other side of the painting, like what's behind it is important too, as just what's on the front surface.
I appreciated the quote you put in about, you know, children taking things apart in order to get to know them and to know something about the way things work or exist in the world. And I'm not surprised that you get that question a lot regarding books, right? Because people love books, and the idea of cutting them is really anathema to a lot of people. And there's another artist in the exhibition that also uses books, again, found books for her work, and she's cutting images out of them. And so I'll ask you what I asked her, you know, how did you have any hesitation at first, or did you feel like, you know, can I really do this? Am I doing something wrong? Am I, you know, desecrating this book? Or
yeah, but I think that's what kind of makes it exciting. You know, that's what gives it its edge and makes us think about what the subject matter is. You know, I think in 2000 as well, it was a time where, you know, we hardly had cell phones, and not everybody had a computer and the internet, and everyone was worried that the internet was going to be the demise of books, you know, as objects. Luckily, hasn't really been the case. I don't think it will be like that. But at the time in 2000, that was throwing that question up and saying, "Look, you'll miss me when I've gone," kind of thing. Can you realize I'm here, and the importance of me? So yeah, I mean, I always struggled with it, but I knew that it was something that was edgy and interesting. So again, you know, they were thrown out, or books that weren't rare editions, so that kind of comforted myself. But the whole symbol, yeah, it can be a violent, seen very much as a violent act, but life is violent sometimes, and our whole existence and non-existence is something that we all grapple with, I think, anyway. So it's kind of asking questions about all that stuff, and as well.
Well, and also it's a way to give these objects another life or new life. I'm thinking particularly of those Bibles that you used that had been kind of discarded and thrown out. I mean, so yeah, you could make the argument to someone, you know, well, they're still being used and appreciated and seen in a very different way, but they're not, you know, just
exactly
somewhere.
Yeah, because no one would really think about their existence at all, if not, I think, you know, I think it's important to remember what's happened in the past, to act on what we're going to do with it now, kind of thing.
So could you walk us through briefly, kind of, okay, you have the book that you want to cut. So how do you go about that? I mean, I'm envisioning you kind of going page by page, and you're using a scalpel.
Let's see, I have a book here. Actually, I'm going to start soon, because I've been itching to get back to the books since the whole question of monuments has been up. And so this one's called The Story of the Heavens, and it's a beautiful book about the planets, and so what I do is, with the nice plates, I take them out and I'll make them into separate pieces. But this book will become a dissected piece. So what I do is I get this piece of metal and I put it in between the pages, and I cut about maybe 2 or 3 pages at a time, because it gives it a bit of rigidity. So I put can you see? Let me see, like that. I have to put that in there, and then fold it over. And then I get my scalpel. I'm not going to actually cut it, because I don't want to start a composition that I can't change. But here we go, and I just cut. Well, I can actually cut one bit. Can I wait a minute? Let me see. Let me do this so that I can show you. You can all try this at home if you want. Still cut yourselves. Parental guidance. So yeah, I put it in here. Can you see? Kind of?
Yeah.
And then fold it over. So this becomes over layer and layer and layer and layer and layer. It just gets, as you imagine, bigger and bigger. So, and the way you cut depends on the form you get, if you do long ones or short ones, or if you want to change the forms. Like the Bibles were crazy because I managed to get them so big, just, you know, they were so thick. So yeah, that's kind of the technique.
Do you have a sense of what they will look like when they're done, or is that something you really can't control and it just ends up?
Yeah, those ones I kind of control. At the beginning, of course, I didn't, but those ones I can kind of control now. I never really know exactly what they're going to look like, but I have a main idea. Again, it depends on so many different pieces. Sometimes I think I've got an idea of how it's going to turn out. Then you start it and it takes you on a completely different journey, but not really with the book pieces. You know, the book pieces, I kind of know roughly what I want to do with each one, what personality I want to give them. Or
Yeah, I love the one that we're showing here, attachment or attachement.
Yeah.
And I like how you spoke about it. That attachment can be this really, when you were speaking about it, it reminded me of being a parent, right? Like attachment can be this really beautiful thing, but it can also feel kind of suffocating sometimes. So there is that kind of push and pull between those two feelings.
Yeah. I think there's that in a lot of the work, I think, as well, because it's also, you know, because I'm cutting something, it's the push and pull between trying to keep something and losing it as well, and accepting change, accepting that it's going to be different. I think that's what people look at when they see catches maybe their attention. Like, why did you not keep it? What are you doing?
Yeah.
Well,
it was really a pleasure for me to be able to see these works in person, finally, after years of looking at them in photographs. And I hope someday I have the opportunity to see your larger works. And I think we're coming up on time, but before I let you go, I just wanted to ask quickly, you know, kind of moving from the books and smaller paper works to the larger works on canvas. I mean, it appears that your technique is very similar. And are you using the same kinds of tools to cut into the canvas as you are the paper?
Still using the same tool, but still always the knife. Even if the thick canvas, I can still use the scalpel. So, but yeah, it would. I haven't really come to the point where I'm changing tools yet. Maybe that could happen, but yeah, it's always the same. It's the scalpel, kind of, that I've been using.
Yeah. Well, one last question. Someone is asking, do you plan to stay in France to continue to work? It sounds like you're pretty settled there.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I feel kind of, it's a very strong thing for a Scottish person to say, but I feel French as well, you know, and the France has enabled me to discover so much, such a different way of thinking than Britain. So yeah, I love the international side of France, and I love Scotland for very different reasons too. So I think the two are just perfect together. But yeah, here, I mean, I've made my home, and my kids are bilingual, and I just really would like to keep that going as well, you know. So yeah, but still going home to Scotland when we can, as much as possible, for holidays and weekends in the rain.
Yeah. Well, in normal times, it's not a far trip.
Exactly, especially for you guys. I mean, it's only 2 hours in the airplane, you know, it's really easy. So I think that's what's helped all the time. I've never felt far away, you know, so it's been easy. It's not as if I've gone somewhere completely different.
Right. Yeah.
So, but yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you for taking the time to speak to us and to show us around your studio. It was really, that was a real treat.
Okay.
Really a fantastic way to end this series that we've been doing.
Thank you. No, thanks for your time as well and all your work. And I only wish I could come.
I
So,
know. Well, we'll keep our fingers crossed for the next few months and
Yeah.
keep wearing our masks, and we'll see what happens.
Show ends in January, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
And well, it might be prolonged, maybe. Who knows? No? Is there any chance of that? You don't know.
I mean,
Yeah,
anything can happen, as we know.
that's true.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you again. And Carolyn, do you have any closing remarks for us?
Just want to second the thanks to you, Georgia, for taking the time today. I loved the demo, was so cool. So I'm so happy that you gave us that little insider moment today. So thank you. Thank you to the French Committee.
Yeah.
As Jenny said earlier, this is our last of the Women to Watch video virtual studio tour. So what a great one to close out on. Thank you, Georgia. I just want to thank everyone who's attended, one or all, or these have been the highlight of my job currently, not being able to be, in the museum today, but but not all the time. So getting to work with Jenny and Aureen and all the artists it's been such a joy. So we thank everyone, the committees, for making this exhibition happen.